And I know we're going to fail many times, but how do we get back up and try again? And so I just hope that, we're constantly trying to find growth within ourselves.
Hello, and welcome to a Valentine's edition of the Thrive State podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Vu, triple board certified MD and performance and longevity expert. And if you read my book, Thrive State, you'll know that relationships, but specifically nurturing positive relationships, actually adds year to our life. It actually transforms our DNA and our biology to give us peak performance, optimal health, and longevity. So cultivating those nurturing relationships are so important. And what a better way of sharing relationships and sharing how to develop relationships than sharing my relationship with my fiance, Tiffany Lee. If you've been following my work and you've been following my life, you'll know that my relationship isn't picture perfect. In fact, we have tons of challenges and a lot of it is pretty ugly. But one thing that I've learned during this process is that ugliness is actually a reflection of maybe some of the deeper wounds we carry into relationship. And when we could start to identify them, we could see what is wrong with them, heal those parts. And as we heal those parts, we not only become better versions of ourselves for the ones that we love, but also for the people that we serve. This is what relationships are. They are a reflection of our own lives. And in intimate relationships, they are particularly important because it's in those intimate relationships that those things that are most vulnerable to us, those things that scare us most, those things that trigger us most, all those things come out. But really, when they do come out, and if they do come out ugly, that's really the opportunity for us to be able to see what's there and see what we can heal. That's the beautiful part of relationships. And so I'm hoping that by sharing with you our journey, you could see some of the resources that we've kind of tapped into to not only heal some of our old wounds, but how to show up better as better versions of ourselves to really ignite that relationship aspect of that bioenergetic state. So throughout this podcast, you'll see everything that we've been through, from seminars to conferences to books. And we just want to share with you some resources that you might find helpful to actually elevate your relationships as well. Now, if you know my fiance at all, you'll know that she is the brains and the beauty of our relationship. She is actually Tiffany Lee. She is a Los Angeles-based celebrity hairstylist, makeup artist, and medical esthetician. She has built a loyal community on social media through sharing her pro beauty tips, tutorials, and self-care rituals. Through each client experience, they actually feel a deep sense of connection as Tiffany sees beauty through the lens of personal growth and self-evolution. It is actually her priority and philosophy to teach self-care, self-love, and self-expression while educating that true beauty comes from within. And that's a message that resonates with her deeply and the people that she serves as well. She works with celebrities, thought leaders, and private clients while creating content and partnering with brands that align with this philosophy. Now, she's my fiance. You'll just see how stunning and beautiful she is. And we are both just doing the work. We're no different than anybody else in relationship. We do the work, and the work can be beautiful. It can be ugly at times, but at the end of the day, it is the work that makes us become the very best version of ourselves. The parts of ourselves that is healed, the parts of ourselves that is glowing, the parts of ourselves that are basically the beacon of light that other people are attracted to. So enjoy this Valentine's edition of the Thrive State podcast with my fiance, Tiffany Lee. Tiffany Lee, welcome to the Thrive State podcast.
Thank you for having me, finally.
We were just joking. My fiance, Tiffany, was just saying, I never have her on my podcast. I have all these guests. Why is she not on? And for a very special Valentine's treat, she's going to come on. But you know what? We have a very, very special relationship. And just like probably a lot of relationships out there, there's a lot of experiences, a lot of growth through the process. And we're thinking that, maybe sharing parts of our journey will be helpful for other people going through their own process as well. So we're going to start off very fun, and then we're going to dig in deeper. And if this is something that you guys like, we'll go in deeper and deeper each time we do it. The more we heal, the more we can share with you guys as well. So Tiffany, You might not have known this. You might not have actually played this because you've never been a guest before. But I play a game called Five to Thrive. It's really 5 questions where every answer is less than a minute long, and they're all worth 1,000 points. And if you win dinner with me. Yes, you win dinner with your fiance. So on this very special edition, she's going to give me 5 quick questions, and then I'm going to come back at her with 5 questions as well. And we let people know that we're doing this podcast together. People have been sending in their questions already. We'll spend the rest of the podcast going through their questions as well. So hope you're ready to play Five to Thrive. I believe Tiffany is going to score me first, so she's going to give me 5 questions.
Okay, so I want to first say hi to everybody that's here. I'm super excited to see you guys. We're just going to go ahead and roll. I'm going to ask Kien 5 questions. Okay, first, what's your love language to give and receive?
Well, my love languages that are on the top for me, it would be physical touch and words of affirmation. And if people don't know what the love languages are, we can talk about it a little bit later on. Read the book, The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, and they're basically physical touch, words of affirmation, giving gifts, quality time, and I'm blanking on the acts of service. There we go. So there we go. That was question number 1.
Okay, and so what kind of love language do you like to give, though?
I like to also give physical touch. That's the way I sense love, and that's the way I give love too. So for a lot of people, their give and receive tend to be on the same level because that's how they think of love.
Okay, great. What's your favorite things about me? Not things.
Oh, wow, there are so many, buddy. Great question. Well, she has such a beautiful heart, and she wants to help everybody, whether it be her sister, her mother, our children, the people who are watching out here. She cares for everybody so much, and she has so much to give. She's got the biggest heart of anybody I know, and she constantly spends a lot of time, I think, just, not worrying, but like, how do I serve more? And that's what she's always thinking, and I love that about her. And what I also love is she's just stunning. I mean, look at her. I mean, when I first met her, we'll get into that story a little bit later on, I was thinking, wow, she is just gorgeous and stunning. I remember looking through her Instagram, just thinking, geez, she is wow. And
You're stalking me.
Start drooling. That and so much more, but I could also say she's an excellent mother. There's just so many different qualities. I mean, the reason why I'm so excited to do this, this podcast here today is, I'm in love with this woman, every aspect of this woman, and we could spend 2 hours, 3 hours on the things that I like about her. But we should move on to question number 3.
I'm going to take you up on that later. Okay, what do you think I love most about you?
Well, it's obvious that she's only into me for looks. I think that's pretty obvious that these dimples is what got to her. But if I had to choose a second thing, and it'd be a distant second only because the looks are just so prominent here. The second thing I think she might say is, I am a guy who is always humbly trying to improve myself, that I can always try to see where I'm lacking or not doing a good job and be able to look at myself and then try to apply things for me to become a better person. I am by far a perfect person, but always looking to improve myself.
So let's go to number 4. What are the changes in your love since we met and then now? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say initially, a lot of the love was puppy, dog, goo goo. Oh my God, she's so hot. And I would just drool and be mesmerized by this person. And also, seeing that she, when she walks into the room, just like you see her on screen, or for those of people who are watching on screen, you will just see how mesmerizing you are and just be glued to the light that you shine out. That was probably the initial thing. And then now, after being in a relationship nearly 3 years now, I really just get to see, her heart, and also her willingness to be able to see how she could show up better, to be a partner, to be a mother, to be somebody who serves the world in a very, very big way. And she is just on it. She is the get it done person. And I admire her so very much for being able to become the person that is just serving to everybody around her.
That's very sweet, honey. Okay, last. I know this is a lot of questions. Okay, how do you want to see us grow?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we're going to constantly grow over time, but what I see us doing is really just,
being an example of what love can be. I think we're going to share with the audience that we have really rough patches in our relationship where I've wanted out multiple different times, but that was a lot of like my old story kind of creeping in. But what I want it to be is to show, other people that are out there is that we could come in with our wounds and things that we need to heal, but with a vision of love present, it could heal all. And how I want to see us grow is just to be an example, just in particular for our kids. I want my bonus daughter to be able to see what a loving relationship is like, and certainly for our own daughter, what two people in love can do together.
Awesome. Okay. Are you ready for asking me your question?
Yeah. How many points did I get there out of 5,000 points? Did I win?
Oh, yeah. You're lucky to get a dinner with me.
All right. Dinner with you. Here we go. So 5 to Thrive, I'm going to ask her right now. Question number 1 is, what has been your best relationship resource, whether it be a therapist, a book, a podcast? What's been one thing that's been very transformative in terms of a relationship resource?
Wow. I feel like there's not just one thing that's been helpful. I really do believe therapy has allowed me to become vulnerable and to share things that I didn't know that I had packed so deep within myself. I definitely follow different people on social media as reminders of how I can take a step back to see the situation and how I will also want to show up. So there are like the holistic psychologist, or there's a few others, but there's several that I follow, and I'm like, it's a good reminder. So I try to make sure that I fill my social media with people that inspire me, that help me want to grow. And then books, of course, I've been listening to different Audible books because I don't have time to read all the time. So I like to listen while I'm doing things, and some things come in and out, but there are some moments where I'm just like, wow. And last week I had a big breakthrough, which is really amazing.
Okay. And what book did you have that breakthrough from?
I read, or I'm reading Untethered Soul, and that was recommended.
Singer.
Yes.
Very good.
And that's been recommended for years, and I just never had the opportunity, or I never made time. And my goal or practice for self-care is to make that time for me first. And I'm slowly doing that. It's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah. All right. Very good. 1,025 points on that one. Question number 2, Tiffany Lee, this is actually a question one of your fans asked, is what do you cherish about me or like most about me?
You are so pure and so honest. I just admire that so much. You live in a way where you do things because you do everything out of love and out of good intentions, even if I don't see it because if I'm triggered or not. But ultimately, when I look at you, I am just so humbled, and I'm so grateful and honored to witness you as a human and also as my partner, father of my children. Just like, it's just so beautiful. And I love that most about you.
Oh, thank you so much. 1,500 points for that one. That was pretty good. Question number 3 is, what's your favorite memory of us?
Oh, there's a lot. I think some of the best memories that we've had, we traveled quite a bit in the beginning of our relationship. And I think what was always funny is we would try to like snap each other when we fall asleep, and we kind of make a joke out of it. And so those are some of my favorite.
Just go ahead and tell people what we used to do. What kind of pictures did we used to snap with each other?
Well, we went to a relationship conference for Tony Robbins, and they, it's all about relationships. And they had like this class about, I don't know, I don't know what you would call it, but they gave every female a dildo. And I was like, what am I going to do with this dildo? And so literally while I fell asleep, because we'd have these like 18-hour day conferences, he put the dildo right next to my face. And what else? Just put like lotion and snap photos of me, this guy. And so, I mean, it's funny to look at. I would get mad, but it's just too funny to not, talk about it.
Now that the cat's out of the bag, I think we need to use that as an Instagram post. Very good. Question number 4 is, what is your top love language?
My top love language is quality time and words of affirmation, and then physical touch.
All right. Okay. And last thing is, what is the ultimate vision of our relationship?
I want us to be able to, whoever we meet, whoever we interact with, that they can just feel the essence of what our love means. Not necessarily just like the romantic aspect of it, but truly just loving each other to the core of our flaws, our vulnerability, our soul, and how do we share our story to be able to help others, and mainly for our kids, like you said, just be that example, a living example. And I know we're going to fail many times, but how do we get back up and try again? And so I just hope that, we're constantly trying to find growth within ourselves.
That's very great. A vision that our children could admire and look up to and tell their friends about. Oh my God, our parents are like the most awesome couple in the world, right? Well, 7,500 points. You went to the 5 to thrive there. And since you're buying me dinner, I'm going to give you a little sexy time as your prize, my dear. Well, hey, everybody, welcome. If you're just joining us right now, we are in the Thrive State podcast where Tiffany and I, my fiance, will be going over basically questions that you guys have given to us about what you want to know about our relationships. We'll be sharing the very fun and superficial, but also be going a little bit deeper into our relationship, hopefully sharing something that could be applicable to anybody else out there in relationship as well. And one of the questions that we got from actually hundreds of people is how we met. And I'm pretty sure we each have our own version of how we met. So I'm going to go first, and I'll let you know. I'll give you your version. We met nearly 3 years ago when I was really trying to become a better version of myself. And so I invested in this very big program with Tony Robbins. Actually sold my house to do it. I was so ready for a big change in my life. When you basically follow Tony Robbins around for the year and get to hang out in very close proximity with him. And the very first event that I went to was Unleash the Power Within in Dallas, Texas. And I got through the event and I'm on my way home and we are at Dallas Love Field. Could it be any better? Dallas Love Field. We're in Dallas Love Field. And all of a sudden I recognize some purple hair. There's somebody that's being stopped over at the TSA with purple hair. And I'm not quite sure why she was stopped as well. And what happened is I tried to walk through as well, and I also got stopped from the TSA. And I said, guys, I don't really have anything. And they pointed at my arms and say, sir, what about those guns? No, I'm kidding. But we actually met right at the TSA checkpoint. We shared a few words with each other. We also shared a few, our socials and our numbers. And I remember walking back, sitting on the plane, and I'm checking my phone, and already I got a text from this woman. And in my mind, I'm thinking, yep, she wants me. And I saw her on her Instagram feed, which was beautiful. I saw that she was a mother of a beautiful child. I wasn't quite sure what her relationship status was, but that's basically how we met. I was stalking her then, invited her out to hang out where my little, how I get the ladies is my karaoke. And after that, it was all over. So that's my version. What's your version, Tiffany?
Well, I mean, somewhat similar, but yes, I got stopped at TSA pre-check. I had like 50 sheet masks that I packed up. So I think they thought I was hiding something. And so he's like, hey, we're at UPW. And I was looking around. I'm like, who's talking to me, or is this me? And I normally obviously don't talk to strangers. And so this guy seemed I wasn't intimidated by him.
Non-threatening.
Yes, non-threatening. Non-threatening. And I was like, oh, whatever. I'll just, say hi. And after a Tony Robbins conference, you just feel very optimistic, energetic. You're all about networking and just learning about people's stories. So I was like, okay, he just caught me at a really good time. Otherwise, I'd probably just be like, who are you? He was very kind, very nice person, and we both realized we're both in LA. So my mindset was like, oh, well, why not just build my network and meet more people that are wanting to grow and expand. And I felt very stuck in my life during that time. I felt just nothing. I was just at plateaued level and working so hard, but nothing was changing. So why he said I text him was he texted me first this YouTube video about him and his life story. So I'm like, wow, that was so beautiful. Thank you for sharing something so intimate and vulnerable with me. And he's probably thinking, oh, this girl likes me, but I grew up in Texas. So we have some manners where we acknowledge people and, just touch base versus not trying to flirt. So I was not flirting with him.
I don't know how she says that with a straight face, but you see, she can't. She's laughing about it right now.
And then this guy here, he texts me and he's like, hey, do you want to go to like Tony Robbins get together? So of course I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to put effort to meet new people because it's easy for me to become an introvert, even though I am on social media. I talk to people all day with work, and the last thing I want to do is go out and meet more new people because I get so exhausted and I need to recharge. So he caught me at a good time where my answer was supposed to be yes and say yes. So of course, when I said yes, I totally was trying to find a way to get out of it. Because this guy was like, what kind of songs do you want to sing together as a duet? And I'm like, we did not have any songs aligned. I didn't know what songs. But yeah, long story short, we met and I did not know it was a date. In your mind, you thought it was a date. I thought we were just going to
didn't
dinner.
necessarily think it was a date. It was a getting to know thing also,
Okay.
I mean, yeah,
Okay.
you came as a person that I was stalking all week, but, I didn't have any expectations. All right. So next question is, also coming from your audience is how long before you knew that he or she was the one?
Okay, I'll go first. For me, there was a moment where I was very hurt by Kien. And I think going through that process, most relationships in my past, I would just be like, F you, we're done, bye, I'm over, like I can just like close that door and never look back. And I think that was just my auto response. But there was just something about Kien, even when I felt hurt by him, there was something where I still wanted to fully forgive him and love on him, love on his pure soul, despite of the, actions or whatever that might have hurted me. So that was a big, just like, I wouldn't say revelation, but it really opened up my eyes and I was like, wow, I really love this person. To be able to forgive this person and still want to try and still want to go through this, even though it hurts so bad.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And for me, I'm somebody that, we're going to go through attachment styles in a second, but I'm somebody with an avoidant, attachment style. And I think I had issues with commitment only because I feel hurt in the past. And if you didn't go full in, weren't going to get hurt. And in past relationships, I would sabotage them because every little tiny thing that was wrong with that person, I would say, oh, there's this thing, that thing, that thing. And those, in my mind, would be the reasons I would close somebody off. And so whenever, things arise that didn't feel right, I was the first to run out the door. And that was my pattern prior to meeting Tiffany. And after getting with Tiffany, I decided, hey, I wanted aspects of me to change. And I recognized my destructive patterns in relationships. And I really wanted to work on them. And certainly when we met, there were different type of tensions that we could get into a little bit later on. But these tensions were just a lot of the old patterns that we were each playing out in our own lives. For me, it was that avoidant personality that wanted to, or avoidant attachment style that wanted to, put an arm's length and distance and not actually be present in the relationship. And that was self-sabotaging. And, we each had our own versions of that. But for me, it was basically two moments where I did psychedelics. One time it was ayahuasca, the other time it was mushrooms. And for those people who don't know, psychedelics are an avenue for us to sometimes be able to go past some of the old patterns. I mean, we grow up with traumas, and with those traumas, they can sit in our brain, and sometimes, those things act to kind of prevent us from being who we really are. They're used to protect us, and these patterns develop because of that. But if we could slow those things down, now some people could do it with meditation, some people do it with breath work, but psychedelics is a way we could slow those things down so that we can pierce past those old patterns of trauma and protection to get back to love. And the first time I did ayahuasca with Tiffany, we were together, and basically all those limiting patterns and beliefs of love were broken. And I felt her soul, and she felt mine, and nothing felt more perfect and aligned in that way. After that experience, certainly those patterns did come back in. That was the vision of what we can be if we can work on it. And that was the other thing too, was I knew that I was willing to work on my stuff, and I saw that she was willing to work on her stuff as well. That's how I knew that the challenges and the obstacles and the ugliness, in our relationship were actually the gifts for us to be able to see where we've been hurt, how to heal them, and how to move forward. So that was for me. Let's now talk about attachment styles. Now, if you guys don't know about attachment styles, learning these attachment styles are so important because it can give you some awareness of the differences of how you interact with each other. And so, what is your attachment style?
So I am anxious, insecure, and I notice myself, whether it's with a romantic relationship or in general, I notice that I need control over the situation. And I overanalyze. I just make sure everything, I wouldn't say I'm super OCD. I mean, maybe Kien might think I'm OCD, but I want certain things in order, obviously, because it makes me feel at peace. And that could be that could be OCD somewhat. And I realized through the work that I've been going through, that definitely stems from my childhood. I didn't have a very stable childhood. I grew up really, really poor most of my life, and I had to start working really early on. So I did not have that secure support in that sense. So I think this is why I have that anxious, insecure attachment.
This episode of the Thrive State podcast is brought to you by the Thrive State Accelerator. The Thrive State Accelerator is actually a home course that I developed using the exact same techniques I work with my celebrity clients, CEOs, and executives on how to get them to the Thrive State. The Thrive State Accelerator teaches you how to master your 7 bioenergetic elements. That's sleep, nutrition, movement, stress and emotional mastery, relationships, our thoughts and mindset, as well as purpose. In this Thrive State Accelerator, you're also going to get a bonus module on optimization. That's how I talk about supplementation, peptides, all the optimization techniques I use with my clients to get them to the Thrive State. Now, for some of you who are just joining us for the first time, you guys might be wondering, what is the Thrive State? Well, the Thrive State is actually the energy, the epigenetic environment we give to ourselves, telling our DNA how to act and how to respond. And if we want optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, if we can master these 7 bioenergetic elements, our ability to have those 3 things that we just said, optimal health, longevity, and peak performance, is at its greatest. And it also prevents you from getting chronic symptoms like brain fog, being overweight, feeling sluggish, acne, pain, all these chronic symptoms, as well as preventing you from getting chronic disease. So getting to that Thrive State is really getting to that state to master being that very best version of yourself so you could show up for you, for your family, for your business, everything that's important to you. So go ahead, check it out right now at kienvu.com/accelerator and use coupon code podcast25 for 25% off. Now back to the podcast.
Yeah, so my attachment style is avoidant, and that's also in the insecure spectrum. And so avoidant people don't like conflict. And so whenever conflict arises, they'll just go off and go on their own. They tend to be very independent because they sort of kind of guard their heart too, because they don't want to rely on anybody and they don't want other people to rely on them. And so whenever we get into conflict, the anxious person would tend to be very anxious and react in a certain way, and the avoidant person would want to run away. And that cycle would repeat itself. And I think it's learning these just attachment styles are so important, because if you know what you are and you know what your partner is, you can give them what they might need. And so to review what the attachment styles are, there are 3 main ones, which is anxious, avoidant, and those are the 2 insecure types. And then you've got the secure attachment style. And we build up these attachment styles, based on how we grow up, our relationship with our parents, and what tended to happen when there was stress in our lives at a very, very young age. So that's something that happens. And at least for me, once I learned that I was avoidant and somebody who's anxious needs a little bit more attention, it's to become aware that, okay, I want to run away now, but can I wake up to the fact that this is a pattern that's running in my life, and can I show up anyway? And so I think that was very good to know those attachment styles, know where my patterns tend to be, and then ask myself, okay, well, how do I want to show up? And it just means maybe leaning in more when I want to run away. How is learning those attachment styles helpful for you, my love?
It is helpful because now I understand that it's not a personal thing where it's just only to myself, that this is how you've been basically running your life. And how do I take a step back to maybe give you the space to process or, come to me when you need something? Yeah, I'm still learning. So I think just being aware of it has helped, because I don't take it as personally now. Now we joke about it. I'm like, oh, you're doing that thing.
Yeah. So I think a really great resource, you can probably look up the attachment styles in general.
I'll be sharing this as well once we repost it. So all these resources we'll share with you guys.
Yeah. So the resource is that we use, that we love a lot, is actually an audiobook by Gary Tatkin. And the book is called
Stan Tatkin. So Tatkin.
Yeah. And the book is called Your Brain on Love. So he goes through the attachment styles: anxious, secure, and the avoidant. And he calls it the wave, the anchor, and the island. And I'm the island. So definitely check that out. That book is going to blow your mind if you're in a relationship. All right. Next question is also from one of the audience members, is love language. We talked about it briefly already, but if you haven't picked up already, we're just going to go through our love languages in order. And I think it's really important to know, because that's the way we each feel love. And to understand your partner's love language is great, because you know how they receive love. And to understand your own is great, because then you know how to receive love. And so remember, the love languages from the book, The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. So Tiffany, what is yours in order?
Well, first, I'm going to admit, yesterday we were going through our questions together, and I actually was like, that's your love language? Really? I was actually surprised, because I thought I knew. And so it's pretty funny, because us being together for about 3 years, I thought I knew, and vice versa. So my love language is quality time. And it's changed through the years, of course. So I want quality time first, words of affirmation second, and then physical touch as the third.
All right. Okay. So my top 3 would be physical touch, number 1. Number 2 is words of affirmation. And number 3 would be acts of service.
I'll share with you guys what I was surprised. I thought he wanted quality time too. And he was like, no, that's like the very latter of the 5.
Yeah, that's the last one for me. And no judgment there. We're all a little bit different. We get these love languages based on sort of like how we receive love from our parents at a very young age too. So, okay, next question is, how do we meet each other's love languages? Starting with Tiffany.
Lots of sex. No, I'm just kidding. I think just being gentle with him, because as much as you guys may see me on camera being feminine, when I'm actually very masculine. And that masculinity comes from me, since I was younger, feeling like I have to take charge of my own life, protect myself. And so even though the visual of me seems very feminine, I'm very dominating, very masculine, very hard. And so a lot of times I can be really hard on Kien. And so I noticed that if I can come to him with a softer approach and come without protecting myself, he is able to receive my love. And then also acknowledging and praising him in a good way of just really admiring the hard work that he puts in for our family, for himself, and just noticing him. I think that really resonates with him. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Since words of affirmation were number 2, that's completely right. And having a lot of sex, number 1, being physical touch for me, spot on. You win some tonight, my dear. For me, how do I meet hers? I mean, knowing hers is quality time, is really about, we're both kind of like entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, hustling in our own respective businesses. And finding quality time is something that is difficult for me, because mind is always elsewhere. And one of the things I think that has been helpful is to get together with Tiffany, letting her know that she's a priority, and to plan our date nights. So we have weekly date nights, and then we also add in additional stuff, but making sure that she knows that I want to include quality time to nourish our relationship, that she's thought of before all these other things have been important. So I think spending the time to create quality time together has been something that I'm becoming a little bit more conscious of, to meet her love language of quality time. So how do you each react when there's conflict?
So my normal pattern is to attack. He nicknamed me the dragon, which is very true. So it's funny now, but what I realize is I have a hard time articulating the way I feel many times. And I think that I do express myself. And a lot of times I feel that it gets unnoticed. So those emotions get compounded for me. And once it gets compounded, then the explosion happens. And so I notice that that's my normal pattern of response whenever we do get into conflict.
Yeah, my response is really to run away. I don't like conflict. So I notice when there's stress that comes on, like, there's stress that goes on my life, I tend to distract myself with social media or with, TV or whatever that might be, is just to not deal with it. And that's a pattern. So, and how do I better respond now is something that I teach in my book, Thrive State. And if you haven't picked up a copy yet, thrivestateBook.com. But it's a process of recognizing the patterns. And the patterns, her pattern maybe is to attack. My pattern is to run away. But anytime you have a pattern, you could actually break that pattern by doing something, right? And it's a process I call create space and act. You create space by just going for a walk or taking 10 deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth like you're blowing through a straw. What that does is it actually activates your parasympathetic nervous system, and it allows you in that react state to at least calm down a little bit. And you basically create a little bit of space. And in that space, you act, which stands for ACT, or awareness, choice, and take action. So have the awareness. What is the awareness? The awareness is, I was just triggered. I'm in that triggered state. Oh, okay. Maybe that's that false belief. And just have that awareness there. The next thing is choice or choose. What intention do you want to have? Like, I don't want to be in this reactive state. I actually want to show up with love. I actually want to show up with kindness. I want to show up with generosity. So you choose that intention. And lastly, T is take action. What action do you want to take from that place? So a lot of times I realize that sometimes I'll react. And sometimes, like our therapist says, the reaction, sometimes it can't be stopped because, it's years of patterning, but it's what you do next. And so sometimes if I were to react, I would stop and go through that process of taking 10 deep breaths in through my nose and out through my mouth and go, oh my God, I just reacted. I have that awareness. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be this way. So even though I have some pride and not want to apologize or not want to go up there, I'm just like, hey, you know what? I want to show up with love. What's the next move? Babe, I'm sorry. I just reacted. That just came up, and can we start over? And that's been a very, very beautiful process. So if you notice, you've got some patterns, really try that technique. That might be helpful for you. Next question. I hope you guys are finding some value in all of this. From the comments and feedback that we're getting, it sounds like a lot of this stuff is resonating. So we're happy to do more of this in the future. Tiffany had mentioned on one of her IG stories that this is the most challenging relationship she's had. So I'll have her share why she finds it so challenging.
Yeah, this is the most beautiful and most challenging relationship I've ever been in. And what I mean by that is being in this relationship with Kien, it really has reflected so many of my core wounds, and dealing with it and facing it has been really difficult because I think so much of my life, I just allowed myself to believe the story that it is the way it is and whatnot and just kind of ignore it. But truly, being with a partner that can be your safe space and that you can be vulnerable with and go through these tough times is just so beautiful. I don't know how I got so lucky to be able to meet you, Kien, to allow me to heal. I just feel very grateful.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And on my part, I think I've shared on social media how challenging, the relationship has been in multiple different parts, and how ugly it's been in multiple different parts. And for those of you who might be in relationships, right now where parts of it is ugly, I just want you to know that that's actually kind of the good stuff, sort of, because it reflects back to you what some of these old wounds and patterns are. And when you're able to see that and those patterns come out again, you can be, oh, okay, well, why do I act that way? You could really start to see that for what it is, and then recognize the parts of you that need to heal. And when that part is healed, the new part of you is able to express itself. And that's been the beautiful part, is we've gone through, so much of this up and down roller coaster, but, in the process, we constantly wanted to become better, wanted to evolve, seeing the parts that need to be healed, and give ourselves the parts that we sometimes wanted from the other person. That's another really, really important thing too. So it's been a very beautiful process. And for anybody who are going through a challenging relationship now, recognize that, all it takes is the awareness that you would like things to be better, and just to ask questions of why it isn't that way, and then kind of reverse engineer, how you want your relationship to be. And it's always going to be a work in progress. It's going to be messy, but it's a beautiful process. I wouldn't have it any other way. Next question. All these awesome questions. is how do you, this doesn't really apply to us because we're actually going to therapy together. But the question is, how do you get your spouse to go to therapy with you when he or she doesn't want to? What's your answer to that?
Well, between the both of us, I am the more resistant one. I'm more resistant to ask for help, to be vulnerable. I have a lot of pride and protection that I'm holding within myself. However, to have a partner like Kien that is actually doing the work first and not waiting to do anything until we both do it is actually just such a great example that it allows me to take time to take a step back and be like, okay, he's doing it for us, also for himself. And what can I do on my part? Because I want this to work as well to take that next step. So I think if you are looking for your partner to also join therapy and also maybe, find ways to grow together, I think if you are the one that's more open, I would suggest that go for yourself first, and it will reflect the work that you're doing to your partner naturally, and they'll see the change because you are doing the work. So I think that's what I would say.
Yeah, that was a really great question. And I feel that you can't force someone to do work that they don't want to do. And this isn't something it's like, okay, you go, because if you drag them in and they don't want to do it, they are going to close themselves off to learning or opening up. And that's not what you want. And so I think what Tiffany said there was so important. It's to do the work yourself first, because so much of being in a relationship is just to know where you get triggered and master your own sense of love and giving yourself self-love and all those type of things. So when you work on yourself, you'll notice that the relationship will naturally get better. Now, you might get to the point where you're doing all this work on yourself and you've got a vision and outcome of the relationship and they're not meeting you. You can at least then say, look, I've worked on myself. This is what I really want in this relationship. We're not quite there. Can you meet me? And if you're with somebody who doesn't want to meet you and you've really done the work to be very grounded in that statement, then, it might not necessarily be the right relationship for you. So that's my answer there. And last question. Wow, we've 45 minutes just flew right by, but we'll answer this last question. It was hundreds of questions that came up today that we were just not going to get into, but we're definitely going to be doing more of these because we know you guys are interested in it. And please give us your feedback as well so that we can improve on the format for next time. Last question before we get to our tips is therapy useful?
Yes, absolutely. I was very scared of therapy, and it's really finding also the right therapist for you. I've tried a few, and really finding someone that is there to truly want the best for you and find different ways to just create a really safe space for you is really important. So, yes.
Yeah, I definitely think, therapy is very, very helpful. And I think individual therapy as well as couples therapy is very important. And if I want to give an analogy of how therapy works is, if you're basically on this emotional roller coaster ride with your partner in relationship, you're just up and down, you're riding it. But when you have a therapist who provides a safe space for you guys to share openly, you could actually take a step back rather than being on the roller coaster. You could take a step back and actually see the ride happening. And then when you could take a step back and see that, you have access to new choices and new ways of thinking and behaving, to really kind of transform that relationship. So therapy is absolutely, I feel, a big game changer for us. But Tiffany and I, we're always looking for ways of improving. So we do courses, we do retreats, we do therapy. We're all about becoming the very best versions for us, number one, but, our families and then also the people that we serve.
I want to something though that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So we talk about how our relationship is like a roller coaster. So as Kien and I were dating, he took me to Six Flags Magic Mountain on our date. And then that's when he asked me, he's like, do you want to be in a committed relationship with me? And I was like, we were both so scared, and we used the analogy of the roller coaster because we really both felt very unsure about what we're committing to. If we're ready for this, do we really want this? And there's excitement and there's so much fun, but there's also a lot of things that we were feeling as well and uncertainty. So it's just really funny and also just so beautiful that that was kind of the solidification of our relationship and how we that's just part of, the journey of relationship as well.
Our time is running still here. And so before we get into the very last question, I just want to, have like a few tips out there. Tiffany, are there like any like big tips that you could throw out there right now that people could just sort of, walk away with?
I think I wasn't expecting this question. Okay. Some tips that I can give.
I'll start first.
I do know the answer.
Go ahead.
It's so important. And this is something that I'm really trying my best to practice and make this a priority, is really nurturing myself first. For the relationship to really grow, I have to really feed myself. I have to take care of myself and make myself the number one person. I don't put myself first at all. And so I think I'm trying to unlearn a lot of the things that I've been doing my whole life and really giving myself that nourishment, the love, the time, the space, the rest. And when I am in that more positive state, I'm able to respond a lot better to Kien, to my children, to anybody around me without stress. So I think that's my tip.
Absolutely. I mean, put on your own oxygen mask before you put it on for others. And she's got such an awesome job giving to others. Really fuel herself has been like a game changer for us. So I'm just going to give 3 tips, and there's tons more. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this relationship version of the Thrive State podcast. If you do, let us know that you want more and what you guys want to know. But my 3 things I wrote down was, number 1 is a relationship is a place to give and not to get. And it's a big mindset change is, when I'm thinking about it, like rather than asking, okay, what's she doing for me or whatnot, it's how do I serve her? Number 2, you can't ask others to give us something that we're not ready to give ourselves. So I see for me, like if I want, respect, I can't expect to receive respect from my partner if I'm not willing to respect myself. Just get that for a second. So, so much could be resolved. Like that thing that you need, if you could try to source that within yourself or from God, from a higher source, and give that to yourself and learn to receive that, then you could open the channels of receiving it from the other person. That's it. And if I were to give one last thing, we went to that relationship seminar with Tony Robbins, and we knew 3 things, that men do and that women do as well that are actually antagonistic to a good relationship. So I want to share that with you. So for men, I want to say this for women, if you do these things, it might really kind of like antagonize the relationship you have for a man. And what are those things? Those are the 3 C's. And I actually thought of more C's, but they are closed off. So if you act closed off, if you complain, or if you try to control. And then there's other words too, like castrate or something like that. If you do that to your man, it will be kind of antagonistic for the relationship. And for the woman, it's the same way. So men, don't do these 3 U's. And what are those 3 U's?
For women, they don't make them feel unseen, don't make them feel unsafe, and don't make them feel unheard. Is that correct?
Yeah, certainly. Unseen, unheard, and unsafe. So, really, really hear and listen to your woman, understand your woman, are very, very important things. But there you have it. That's our podcast for today. I've got one last question I want to ask my lovely fiance. But before we do, how do people find out more about you, your work, and where to find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Beauty Stylist or TikTok Beauty Stylist. And yeah.
So here's the last question. Of everything that you've done thus far, whether it be podcasts, whether it be books or seminars, whatever it is, what has been your best medicine?
I think my best medicine is honestly just like self-reflection. And that could be in therapy, that could be in plant medicine, or just reading a book and finding that time to self-reflect.
Very good. Well, there you have it. Tiffany Lee, my fiance, soon to be Tiffany Vu. Future date coming in. Oh, we didn't answer the question as to why we're not married yet. Well, you know what? You guys are going to have to stay tuned to the follow-up podcast, and we'll answer that question for you. Tiffany Lee, thank you for joining the Thrive State podcast.
Thank you for having me. Oh, thanks, guys.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Thrive State podcast. And if this podcast is bringing a lot of value to you, if you're find that your life is just improving with this podcast, that your life is getting to the next level, please consider supporting it. And here's a few ways you can do so. You can do so by liking this video and commenting on this video, and also sharing this video with your friends and family. Another thing you can do is go to ratethispodcast.com/ThriveState. Go ahead and leave us a 5-star review there. It will really, really help this show grow. And this will give me more time so that I could actually give more content to you, just like you got in this episode. And if you haven't already picked up a copy of my book, Thrive State, Your Blueprint for Optimal Health, Longevity, and Peak Performance, you can pick it up now. It became a #1 new release in longevity. Go to thrivestatebook.com. And if you enjoy the book, please consider leaving us a review as well. And the last thing you can do, if you're liking everything here and you want to work more closely with me as well as my team to get you into the Thrive State, go to kienvu.com/accelerator and consider joining the home course, the Thrive State Accelerator. It's really the course that I use. It's the concepts that I use personally when I work with CEOs, celebrities, and my high-profile clients to get them to the Thrive State. Again, the Thrive State Accelerator at kienvu.com/accelerator. And because you're a listener of this podcast, I want you to save 25% by using the coupon code podcast25. I hope we continue to give value to you. And remember always, you are your best medicine.